want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day, my book, The Mirror of Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you. Now tuned in to the best show in the show business. It's the show where you learn the discipline of showing up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all of this, yes, there's more. You get a huge dose of personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that moves me, you, everybody out there to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. What we do here, what I'm gonna do for you here, is we're gonna take all of that I just told you, we're gonna put all this together, all right, into one, a gumbo, all right, like a meatloaf. And what you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the show, the book also, called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to lift up the people around you. How to lift up those people. So obviously, without me even having to explain that, you understand that today's topic, we're talking leadership. You're going to be lifting people up who are around you. You will become a leader. The saying is, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who said it. He said, if your actions and your energy and your words inspire other people to do more, be more, to become more, to go further, go harder, I added a little bit to that, then that makes you a leader. All right, leader does not have to be, you don't have to have a certain title to be a leader. You don't have to be a parent or a boss or an owner or have a supervisor title, or you don't have to have a certain number of followers on your social media profile to be a leader. A leader is just a person whose presence inspires other people to step their own game up. So how do you do that? One of the things you must do is you must lift up the people around you through your energy, your actions, and your presence. Uplifting people is literally the definition of what a leader does. If you're not lifting people up, it's impossible for you to be a leader, even if you are a boss, a parent, or supervisor. So there are some principles of leadership when it comes to the people that you lead. Now understand that leading people, ladies and gentlemen, you could be leading people knowingly. In other words, let's say if you start your own organization and you have people who join it and they're following you as the person in charge, or you're a boss at a company, maybe you start your own company and you have people who work for you and they're following what you say do, that's knowingly leading. But you could also unknowingly be leading people. There are people who may be watching you, listening to you, following you, taking cues from you, and you don't even know who they are. You don't know that they exist, but they know that you exist because they're following what you're saying, they're listening to what you're putting out, they're reading what you're writing, they're watching what you're recording, and they are following your lead. So there are people who you are either knowingly or unknowingly leading that you need to be applying certain principles on a regular basis to continue to uplift those people. Because as soon as you stop lifting up people, then you are no longer qualified to be a leader. You're no longer leading if you're not lifting other people up. So that's what we're talking about here today. So these principles, again, that we're talking about are how to lift up life at all times. Point number one, you must always stay positive. This is the number one job that you have as a leader, person in charge, because we all know that no matter how skilled, talented, resourceful, well-resourced you are, things in life are not always going to be going the way that you want them to go. Therefore, when things are not going the way that you want them to go, because it's pretty easy to stay positive when everything's working, right? So that's not the times I'm talking about. You got to stay positive when things are not working. You got to stay positive and upbeat and have something positive to say and present a positive front. Even if you only got to be fronting, or if you really mean it, you must present a positive exterior, positive show to the people who are following you, because if you're not positive, then it's going to be pretty hard for them to be positive. I remember years ago, man, this had to be, I don't even know, maybe 15, 20 some years ago, or however long it was. I was watching a Monday night football game, and the Indianapolis Colts were playing in this game, and Peyton Manning was their quarterback. Some of y'all may know who Peyton Manning is. You don't, he's a legendary football player. He doesn't play anymore, but he played for many years, won Super Bowl, maybe 2 Super Bowls. He's a damn good player, quarterback. And in this particular Monday Night Football game, the Indianapolis Colts were losing the game 21-0 in the first quarter. They were getting killed in the first quarter. I think Manning had thrown an interception. There had been a couple turnovers. The other team was hitting on all cylinders. They're down 21-0 in the first quarter. And when the game came back from a commercial, Peyton Manning, as the quarterback, he had been mic'd up. So, when you watch a sports game, sometimes they have the star player with a microphone on him so you can hear what he's saying, and they'll show little clips. So during a break in the action, Peyton Manning's on the sideline, his team down 21-0, and they showed him, when they came out of the commercial break, he was just walking up and down the sideline, giving fist pounds to his teammates and tapping them on the helmet and letting them know. He was saying, hey, 0-0, guys. The score is 0-0. Hey, 0-0, 0-0. He was giving everybody the mentality, and he wasn't doing it. Any of you who follow football know who Peyton Manning is. Peyton Manning was not a rah-rah type of dude. Right? He wasn't jumping up and down. He wasn't yelling and screaming. He was just talking in a regular conversational tone. Like the tone that I'm talking in right now will be louder than Peyton Manning. He would just talk in the same regular conversational tone at all times. And he's just walking up and down the sideline, just saying to his teammates, hey, man, it's 0-0, 0-0. And this was a home game, too. So they're down 21-0. The home crowd is quiet. Things are not looking good, but it's still the first quarter. Now, I didn't even stay up to watch this game, but I remember waking up the next day and watching Sports Center or wherever I got the sports scores from, and they came back and they won that game. Now, I'm not telling you that just because your team's down 21-0 and you start telling people 0-0 that you're going to come back and win. But the example that I'm giving you, which I think you understand, is that as the leader of the team, as the face of the organization and the person that everyone was looking to see how he feels about the situation, Peyton Manning understood that everyone was going to take their cues from him. Now, if he had been walking around with his head down, he was the quarterback. He had thrown the interception. He was the one who hadn't gotten any points for his team yet as the quarterback. If he had been walking around with his head down and feeling bad and slumped over because the team was down 21-0, what do you think the rest of the team would have did? Everybody would have fell apart. They would have got blown out in that game, and it wouldn't even have been a game. Several years, I don't know if this was years, had to be years after maybe, there was a college football game. One of the best college football games. I was reading an article and ESPN ranked as one of the best college games ever. In 2005, this team that I like watching was called the University of Southern California Trojans. Now, they were the defending national champions, and they had brought back damn near their whole team, and they were trying to win the championship again. They had this quarterback named Matt Leinart. They had a running back named Reggie Bush. They were really, really good. They had two running backs, another guy named Lindale White, and this team was just dominant. They went undefeated through the season. They were in the championship game of college football, and they were playing against another team that was also undefeated. This team was from the University of Texas. They had a whole bunch of good players, too. I can't name too many of them. It was just one of them whose name I remember. He was the quarterback of the team at Texas. His name was Vince Young. Now, I remember watching this game. I believe it was the Rose Bowl was where the championship was held this particular year. And the Rose Bowl is in Pasadena, California. USC is from Southern California. So this is basically damn near a home game for USC, even though the Texas fans traveled well. And I wanted USC to win this game. Not because I have any connections to USC. I didn't know any of the players, but I wanted them to win the game. And Vince Young was the guy on Texas. He was the main guy. He was the leader. He came in second in the Heisman voting, which is basically the MVP of college football. The winner was Reggie Bush from USC. So I think Vince Young was, first of all, he had a chip on his shoulder because he didn't win the Heisman Trophy. Second of all, he knew that everybody predicted USC to win that game because they were already the defending champs. They were bringing back a whole bunch of their best players from the previous year that had already won the championship. And they had the best player in the league or in college in the nation that year in Reggie Bush, as evidenced by him winning that Heisman Trophy. So all the odds were stacked against Texas for even having a chance to win that game. But Vince Young was damn good. And I knew Vince Young was damn good. And I remember as that game went on, Texas against USC, it was a close game, back and forth the whole game. I knew as that game went on, I thought to myself, if Texas wins this game, it's going to be because they could not stop this dude, Vince Young. The thing about Vince Young, he was tall. He was about 6'5". He was really fast. He wasn't the greatest passer, but he was so damn fast that he was beating teams with his legs all season. And he did that to USC many times throughout that game. And I remember when Vince Young ran in for the game-winning touchdown. They beat USC basically on USC's home turf to win that championship game. And I always remembered that with Vince Young, because he went into the NFL and he didn't have that great of an NFL career, but he will always have what he did for the University of Texas there. And Vince Young will probably get all his meals for free in Austin, Texas for the rest of his life if he wants to. He can eat really well based on what he did for that team in 2005. And I'm telling you that story along with the Peyton Manning story to explain to you that when you're the person on top,
When you're the person that everyone's following, in football, it's almost always the quarterback. In basketball, it can be any player. In baseball, it can be any type of player. Sometimes a pitcher, but it's kind of different there. But in football is a good example because the quarterback's the guy everyone's looking at. Everybody's watching you. The fans are watching you. The other team's watching you. Your teammates are definitely watching you. If you're showing that you are down because the situation is not looking good, there will be no hope for everybody else on that team. Now, understand that this doesn't mean that you can't feel down. Doesn't mean that you can't be pissed off or upset or whatever it is you want to feel because the situation is not going your way. Doesn't mean you can't feel it, but what it does mean is you can't always show it. That's what it means. I want to say that one more time just in case you didn't catch it. It doesn't, when the situation is not looking good for you and your group, and you're the person in charge, you're the leader, you're the person on top, it does not mean that you can't feel some negative emotion or energy about the situation, but it does mean that you cannot always show it. You do not have a license to show that you're down when everybody else on the team is down. This is a requirement of leadership, and it's part of the price that you pay. This is part of the investment that you must make as a leader, is that you can't always show everybody exactly how you're feeling. There are times when everybody's down, everybody's sad, everybody's upset, everybody's thinking that this situation is going nowhere, we're doomed, we're going to lose, and you got to be the one who's head up, shoulders back, eyes up, positive, chest out, we're going to make this work. Even though it may not really be what you're feeling. That's your responsibility as a leader. If you are not willing to do this, if you insist on you just need to be yourself, whatever the hell that means, all the time, you are unqualified to lead. And even if you happen to back into a leadership position, you won't be there for too long because you won't have influence over people. If you can't stay positive when everybody else is getting down, they won't be influenced by you. It's the fact that you're the contrast between what everybody else is feeling when things aren't working and how you're showing yourself. That's what makes you the leader. The fact that you have a different energy from everybody else in the room, that makes you stand out just by contrast alone, regardless of your skill level. Peyton Manning did it, Vince Young did it. Now, they were both damn good at what they did, but the energy that they put out inspired everybody else to say, all right, let's follow what this guy's doing. All right, he's positive. We're all thinking that we may not have a chance here. He's positive. Let's see what he's thinking. Maybe it'll work. And it ended up working. That solidified their leadership. Now, I'm sure they had plenty of other times they did it that wasn't on TV that I don't even know about. But the idea, the gist of what I'm giving you with both of those guys' stories applies to you no matter what you're doing. You don't have to be an athlete. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to lift up the people around you. Represent what you want to see. This means you have to bring the energy, even when your job is already done and you've already done more than everybody else in the room. Everybody else on the team, everybody else in the business. Whatever you want them to do, you have to do it, even though that would mean you're doing 10 times more than everybody else. Again, the cost of leadership, ladies and gentlemen, is that you do not get the same rights, the same privileges as everyone else. Everyone else has the right to get tired. Everyone else has the right to fall back. Everyone else has the right to say, all right, I did exactly what was asked of me. I'm not doing any more. I'm done for the day. Everyone else in the group has the right to do that because that's their role. Your role is to do this, this, and this. You did those 3 things. All right, you're good. You're done for the day. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. You just are not entitled to a leadership position if that's what you want to do. If you want to do exactly what's asked of you, you can't lead. If you're going to lead, you're going to have to do exactly what's asked of you, and then you got to do a whole lot more. Whatever else you want everyone else to do, you're going to have to represent that. Because if they don't see you doing it, they're not going to buy into hearing you say it. All right, people don't want to hear you talking about something that they don't see you doing. That one right there, that's a good one right there. The cost of leadership is you don't get to do what everybody else is doing. You get to do more. That's the cost of leadership. If you're the head person who produces, you're the head person in your group, and you also are the person who's producing the most results, often those two go together, and you want everyone else on the team to work harder. You know what you have to do? You have to up your own effort to set an example for them, even though you are already doing more work than all of them. So you did more than everybody else. Everyone knows you did more than everybody else, and you want everyone else to step their game up. You have to step yours up even more, even though your normal game is already higher than everybody else on the team. You got to step it up even more if you want them to step theirs up. Why? Because you chose the leadership position. I mean, nobody gets nobody gets forced into a leadership position. Let's put it that way. Some people get leadership thrust upon them. Some of them fail, some of them succeed, but nobody is forced to lead. Because leadership is not the same as being a boss or a supervisor. A boss is somebody who people listen to you because they have to. A leader is someone people listen to because they want to. So if you want to be the person who's leading, you're going to have to do more than the more that you're already doing. You're already doing more than everybody else. Now you got to do more than more. That's the leadership. If you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to represent what you want to see out of everybody else, your leadership reign will either be a complete failure, it won't go too well, and things will go bad for the whole group while you're in the leadership position, or you just won't be in that position for too long. One or the other, maybe a combination of both. Point number 3, the topic today is how to lift up the people around you. You got to be out in the front. You want to lead a group. You want to lift those people up. You want them to be inspired to do more and become more and produce more and get to results more and show up earlier and stay later and all those things that a leader will want everyone in the group to do. You got to be the person out on the front lines doing it. Back in the days, I'm talking way back before any of us was alive, the history books say that the greatest war generals, they earned their leadership positions. Well, they earned them before they got into war, but even once they got into war, they continued to earn their leadership positions. They renewed their leadership positions because they were always fighting at the head of their armies. So when their armies went into battle and those frontline soldiers were out there risking life and limb in battle, hand-to-hand combat or whatever they were using back in those days, these great generals were right there in the front lines with them, risking their life right alongside of them. Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte, Julius Caesar, Genghis Khan, they were out there on the front lines fighting right next to their soldiers. So they were just as susceptible to getting killed as everybody else. They weren't just giving speeches to rile everybody up and then stand in the back and watching everybody else risk life and limb. They were out there too, taking the exact same risk. So you as the leader, if you're asking anyone in your group for a sacrifice, you have to make the exact same sacrifice. Probably you need to make it first, and you'll probably need to make more of a sacrifice than you want anybody else to make. And if you want everybody else to get up early, that means you better be at the office first when they get there early. If you want everyone to stay late, that means when they finally do leave, you need to still be there working. That's the job of the leader. You got to be out in the front, meaning whatever you're asking them to do, you got to be doing 3 times of that on a regular basis, and they need to know that you're doing 3 times of that. It shouldn't be just something that you talk about. It should be obvious when they look at you like, damn, all right, look at what this person's doing. Look at what I'm doing. I can't complain. I can't complain when my boss says get there to work 2 hours early tomorrow, because when I got there 2 hours early, they had already been there for an hour. There's who was it that I was listening to? Man, it was I believe it was Zach LaVine. And those of you who watch basketball know who he is, but Zach LaVine is a basketball player for the Chicago Bulls right now, but he used to play for the Minnesota Timberwolves when he first came into the NBA. And I heard him being interviewed last week. I was listening to this interview, and the person interviewing Zach asked him to tell me a story about one of your former teammates, this guy by the name of Kevin Garnett. Now, Kevin Garnett is a retired player now, but Kevin played in the NBA for damn near 20 years. He went from high school to the NBA, like we talked about with, when I mentioned Kobe Bryant yesterday. And Kevin was always highly regarded by his former teammates, even his opponents, for his dedication, for his discipline, for his tenacity, just for the energy that he brought to the job every single day, whether that was in a live game or in practice. And Zach LaVine was telling the interviewer who asked him the KG question, and KG played for the Timberwolves for several years. Then he went to the Boston Celtics for a few years, won a championship there, was in Brooklyn for a couple years. Then he went back to Minnesota and finished his career in Minnesota. He was 40 years old maybe when he finally retired. And still a hard worker, still a leader, because he had earned that respect. And Zach LaVine was telling the story that as a rookie, Kevin Garnett was like this 18-year veteran. Zach was a rookie. That Zach said, I'm a gym rat. I'm the type of guy who I just like to spend time in the gym. So whether I have a good game or a bad game, I like to come back to the gym later on at night. I like to get to the gym early in the morning, and we got practice at 10 o'clock. I like to get to the gym at 8 o'clock and get some extra shots up and get some extra work in. That's my thing. I just like to spend time in the gym so I can work on my game and get better at basketball. That's a pretty good mentality for somebody whose full-time job is playing basketball. So it was good to hear that from Zach LaVine. Now, the story that Zach told was that one day, he was maybe early in his career in the NBA. He was getting to the gym early, as he was wont to do. And he got to the gym maybe 2 hours before practice because he was going to get some shots up and work on his game before the rest of the team got there. And when he got to the facility, Kevin Garnett, 40-year-old Kevin Garnett, who was damn near retired, was barely playing in the games anymore, was already in the gym in a full sweat, drenched, doing full court sprints. Now, mind you, Kevin Garnett was barely even playing in the games by this point. He was pretty much just sitting on the bench during the game. He was like an assistant coach. That was pretty much his role at this point. Kevin Garnett got to the facility before everybody else on the team. The young guys who were half his age, the guys who were going to be playing a whole lot in the games. He got there before all of them, and he was putting in extra work. Nobody knew about it. No cameras, no social media. He wasn't trying to create content. He was doing that just because it was who he was. That's what a leader does. And that way, if a guy like Kevin Garnett said to the whole team, let's say once everybody got to the gym for practice, if Kevin Garnett announced to everybody in that room, look, all of y'all need to get to practice 2 hours early tomorrow, nobody in that gym could roll their eyes at Kevin Garnett. You know why? Not because he had been in the league 20 years, not because he had won a championship, not because of how many points he had scored or rebounds he had grabbed. The reason why nobody could roll their eyes at Kevin Garnett is because Kevin Garnett was already doing what he was telling everybody else to do. And everybody in the gym knew it. So it's not like he was just fronting and saying, all right, y'all got to do this thing that he was never doing. He was doing it himself. So when he asked everybody else to do it or told everybody else to do it, nobody could have a problem with it. Nobody could object to it because he had earned his leadership position. I read this article about Puff Daddy once, and there was a little anecdote in there, a little story in there. And I did a Virtual Mentors episode on Puff Daddy. It was somewhere in the 200s. But if you're in the gang group, you go into the categories there for Virtual Mentors episodes. You can see the Puff Daddy episode. But there was a story that I read about him once that he was down in Miami with a whole bunch of people who worked for him. And they were all working on some project or something was going on. And actually, Puff Daddy's assistant is the one who told the story. So Puff's assistant tells the story that Puff walked into the room with everybody in the room, all these people who work for him, and he said, look, none of you is working harder than me. Even though y'all might think I'm having y'all work long hours and having y'all do a whole lot of stuff that maybe y'all don't want to be doing, maybe you think I'm pushing you too hard, I want all y'all to understand something. None of y'all is working harder than me, and I'm the boss. I'm making more money than all y'all. I'm writing your checks. None of you is outworking me, and I want to show you how much none of you is outworking me. And he pulled out, according to his assistant, he pulled out his American Express Black card. So this is a credit card that has no limit, basically, because of his financial profile. So Puff pulls out his American Express Black card, and he slaps it down on the table for everyone to see. And this is the announcement that he makes. He says, anybody in this room who can stay up longer than me, you can take that black card to the mall and you can buy whatever you want. There's no limit on that card. You can buy whatever you want. The only way you get it is you got to stay up longer than I stay up, starting right now. And he told his assistant, again, his assistant's telling the story, he said, Puff said to me, you're going to be the one who watches everybody and make sure that you're going to tell me who it is that's still awake and who's trying to beat me. And then the assistant, he kind of laughed about it because he's like, all right, now I got to stay awake because I got to make sure nobody else falls asleep. So he had to watch everybody and make sure that nobody fell asleep and see who was going to win and actually get this black card to go to the mall. Long story short, is nobody won. All right, they all fell asleep before Puff Daddy. He took his black card back and he didn't have to pay that American Express bill. The point that I'm giving you by telling you that story and these others is this. When you're in that leadership position, whatever you're going to ask anyone else to do, you should have already, before you even say anything, they should already know that you're doing the thing that you're talking about. So then when you say it, all they can do is listen. All they can do is maybe there's somebody in that group who'll be inspired and motivated to start moving the way that you move, to start living the way that you're living. But if you're not doing the thing that you're asking everybody else to do, it's going to be pretty hard to get anybody to buy into that. And I think any of you if you had a lot of work experience, or maybe you've been involved in a lot of different organizations, or you played a sport, you probably have dealt with people on both sides of this, right? You've dealt with people who they want you to do something, or they extol a whole group to exhort the whole group to do something, and everyone knows that they're already doing it, so nobody can have a problem with it. Nobody can oppose that. Nobody can protest what that person is asking you to do, because everybody knows that person is already about that thing. They're not lying. They're not acting like they're about something that they're not. And you've also been around people who will talk about doing a certain thing, but they're not doing it themselves. So you're like, how is this person talking and you're not even doing it? Maybe somebody called them out on it. Maybe you said it under your breath later. Maybe you talked about them behind their back. But you know that when you've dealt with somebody who fit that description and somebody who was actually living that life. So make sure you, now that we're done talking about those other people, make sure that you, in a leadership position, you are doing all the things that you would ever even think of asking someone in your group to do. Let's recap today's topic, which is how to lift up the people around you, because uplifting people is the very definition of leading. If you're not lifting people up, you can't lead. And if you are lifting people up, you are leading, whether you know it or not. Point number 1, always stay positive. Peyton Manning, during the Monday Night Football game, his team is down 21-0 in the first quarter. He walked up and down the sideline and said to his teammates, hey, it's 0-0. Play as if the score is 0-0. And they came back and won that game. Vince Young, University of Texas, playing against USC 2005 championship game for college football. He was the guy who led that team to beat the team that was already the defending champs. They had the Heisman Trophy winner. They were basically playing in their own backyard. It was Vince Young's leadership, his energy, that inspired everybody else on that team to believe they could win, and they went in there and they beat those guys. So when you are in a position of leadership, you can't show that you're down when things aren't working. You can't act like there's no hope for everybody else, because if you don't believe, nobody else is going to believe. And even if you're not feeling that great, even if you're not feeling that positive about the situation, you as the leader, you are not allowed to show it. This is a requirement of leadership. This is part of the price you got to pay to be the boss. You can't just show how you feel all the time. Sometimes you got to show something different from what you feel, because it is your job to inspire everybody else in that room. Point number 2, represent what you want to see. This means the energy that you want everyone else to have, you got to bring it even when you've already done more than everybody else. Again, the cost of leadership is you don't get the same rights as everybody else. If you're the head person who produces the most results, you have to up your effort as an example to everyone else, even though you're already doing more work than everybody. Point number 3, be the person in the front. The greatest generals in history, Napoleon, Alexander, Caesar, Genghis Khan, they fought on the front lines with their armies, exposing themselves to the possibility of death, just like the lowest foot soldier. They weren't just giving fiery speeches and watching everybody else risk their lives. They were out there doing the same thing. So if you're asking for sacrifices, you got to be willing to make the same sacrifices as everybody else. You ask people to get to work early, you better be there when they get there. You ask people to stay late, you should still be working when everybody else leaves. I told you the story. Kevin Garnett at the gym early before the young guys who were half his age, even though he was barely playing in the games anymore. Puff Daddy said, anybody who could stay up later than me can have my black card and go spend $1 million at the mall. Nobody got to spend $1 million at the mall because nobody could beat him, even though he was already the person in charge. So when you're in that leadership position, doesn't mean you get to fall back and kick your feet up and then just be a slave driver telling everybody else what to do from the back of the room. You still got to be up in the front, earning that reputation, earning that position day after day after day. Work on your game. Dre all day.